Hi, everybody, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Grace Bubeck, and this is the first session of the second retreat day of the Healing and Awakening Retreat. And we already have one person on the retreat, on the hangout, Lee. Good morning, Lee. And I just need to close down as a window myself. Hold on just a sec. And I just want to invite you this morning to participate fully in the session with your questions, with whatever may have come up for you during the sessions yesterday. You know, I trust in a healing context, in an awakening context, in a context of satsang, whatever comes up is perfect because that's what's there to be seen more deeply and to be experienced more fully than you have been able on your own, or than you have been able so far. Because, you know, the context of the retreat supports, there's a field of consciousness, a field of awareness that supports you in bringing the light of awareness to whatever it is that arose in a deeper, fuller way. And that's, you know, that's what loosens the grip of this experience or this pattern or this thought, whatever it is. You know, this is how we wake up. It's a kind of, you know, sometimes there are big shifts, big kind of new insights that open up. But often the awakening is kind of, you know, it kind of goes very gradually, and it things open up bit by bit. And so some people focus more on the big shifts, and they think all they need is like this big shift of awakening. And others focus more on the more gradual unfolding that happens for a lot of people. And I'm sure you've seen that in your own life also. So I just want to repeat what Jac O'Keeffe said yesterday, because that feels very deeply true for me, to me here. And it's that ultimately, even the distinction between the absolute and the relative, the distinction between the timeless truth of who we are and the healing in time that happens, it's just another duality. And so we can get hooked up into one or the other. But ultimately, there is just all there is. And we can, you know, it's part of waking up that we realize it's perfect that way, and we're not separate from that. It's all just one unfolding, one life, one experience. And one awareness beyond experience, one seeing beyond experience. And that is very difficult to name. But it's when we bring that light of awareness to whatever arises in time, in our experience, that's where the deepest healing happens. And that's where the light comes in, you know? So I want to invite you to use this session. We have about an hour to use this session to bring to the table whatever it is that's calling you this morning, whatever it is that feels jarring, that feels unhealed, that feels unsettled. Use the space for yourself. Use it fully. Use it as fully as you can. Not everybody feels maybe up to exposing themselves by coming onto the Hangout. I just want to mention that, you can come on without the image. Sometimes that feels a bit safer. You can also ask your question on the YouTube comment thread. That's also a possibility. And, this is also community space. We're coming together for this retreat from all over the world. There were people there yesterday from Europe, from North America, from Australia, from New Zealand. And that's just people who signed in and said, I'm from here. There may be others who were there who were from even other places. So just feel free to use the space as it's good for you. It's really for you. And I posted the link to the Hangout on the YouTube thread, as well as on the retreat page with this. So here we are. And I'm just going to take a moment to check in with the YouTube page, whether anybody has signed in there. So let's see whether anything's happening there. Yeah, it's not anything happening at this point. So Lee, I was wondering whether you had a question this morning or whether you wanted to share your experience. I'm just going to unmute you. Lee is with us on the Hangout.
Hi, Grace. So I mentioned earlier that I'm accustomed to doing this type of work on my own, so there's no exposure. I can be as open as I want with myself. And I felt a little resistance about when we were sharing together. I felt some constriction when speaking, and I felt that again this morning, and I realized that best interest to face that resistance, and as Jac said yesterday, to embrace it rather than to flee from it. So here I
am. Wonderful. And I'm glad you're using this opportunity so fully on the retreat. So let's look at this together, shall we?
Sure.
So right now, Lee, where do you feel the resistance?
I would say in my chest, that sort of a constricted feeling. Mm-hmm. It's relatively mild, but I would say, as a feeling of separation.
Okay. So right now, maybe you could just take your hand to also connect with this wherever you feel the restriction. And maybe close your eyes and really just focus in on the sensations themselves. Just take a moment to feel fully what's actually here. And what does it feel like? What are the sensations as you as you put your full attention on this?
Well, I have to say the sensation is evolving. Moment I feel it, as I said, in my chest, and then I feel as if it's a pressure in my head, and then I realize I'm just being aware, and there is no sensation of constriction.
So are you saying that the constriction is gone? The sensation of constriction is gone?
Well, now it's back again. It seems to come and go, but when I put my attention on it, then because I don't know why, just when I'm putting my attention on it, my attention then seems to be attentive to itself, so to speak. At that moment, there is no constriction.
Yes, isn't that interesting? So is it possible at this point simply to really, for this to be an exploration and for you to not know what's going to happen and to just be curious? Like, let's go back to the constriction if it shows up again and see what happens. So right now, is the constriction still there?
Yes.
Okay. So can you go back to it?
Well, interestingly, again, I feel a pressure-like sensation in my chest, and then after a few seconds, I'm simply aware of being aware, and then there is no constriction. There's just the awareness. It's as if in presence, well, of course, in presence, when I'm totally present, there's nothing that it's only when I fall out of presence that I become aware of the constriction or what have you.
Okay. Well, Lee, let's try as much as possible to not bring in any categories, okay? Let's just be in the very naked experience without any categories. Because what you're discovering right now is what's true for you right now. If you bring in a category, like pure awareness or whatever, it's like, it's not fresh, it's not in this moment. And actually, it's like so good to really just be with this in this moment and discover. Okay?
Okay.
So in this moment, what's here?
I have to say there's no thing here.
Beautiful. Yes. It's so interesting that, you were aware of contraction. And as, you do what is the really the counterintuitive thing to do, which is to bring awareness to it. Because usually we try to fix it, right? We try to get rid of it. We try to do something so that it stops. But what's discovered when we simply just bring awareness to whatever it is that obviously calls us, because it shows up. Here it is, constriction.
I have to say that it still seems to come and go, and it seems that when I want to express what I'm feeling, so I'm thinking of the right way to say it, then the constriction returns. And when I'm just being, and it goes away.
Yes. So interesting. So, it's kind of giving you more and more of its, what this is about. So somehow there's I imagine an old constriction that was there whenever, that shut you down. It said, you mustn't speak. It's not safe to express yourself. And
or to be concerned what other people will think about what I say.
yes, which is that, if other people think you're, not saying the right thing, or it's not right by them, then they're going to have a go at you, right? So that's what's not safe.
And you're right, it's a very old constriction. Of course, I mean, it must go back to, and I'm not analyzing, but go back to childhood, because that's when this all apparently went into place.
Yes. So how would it be to receive that constriction fully? Not to analyze it, but simply, it's more like just, wow, here it is. Let's, there's something that Dorothy Hunt, an image that Dorothy Hunt used that I thought was quite beautiful, which is that you can do anything with awareness. So what if you went into this constriction and just as it were, brought this awareness into it from the inside. And now we're not just talking about the constriction that showed up this morning. We're talking about a constriction that's somehow well known, and that, it's been with you a long time. And trust whatever reveals itself as you go in there. Trust whatever unfolds. So what's there for you, Lee?
Well, the first thing that was there was, can I trust this? Because that seems to be how it all began. By being myself, I invited pain, or so it seemed. So that being myself, just being, is opening myself potentially to pain. Yet when I then, there is no pain. There really, as I said, is no thing. It's just being.
Yes, beautiful. And in that beingness, can the pain be received? The pain of being you?
Yes. I'm aware of it intermittently, and then I'm not.
Mm-hmm. So just check whether, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's as if, of course, it comes and goes, but I don't come and go.
Yes, Yes. Well, that's the truth of it, isn't it? You know, whatever sensations, experiences we have, they do come and go. But this awareness doesn't. So right now, Lee, what do you feel at the level of the body? Does there still seem to be a constriction?
There is a slight constriction in my chest and abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
And a sense of nervousness, just a slight dis-ease, non-specific.
Yes. So let's trust that too. Let's trust that this still needs our attention. So when you say nervousness, see whether, it's like different aspects of the same thing, right?
Yes.
So we've received the pain from the past, the pain of being yourself and, meeting with disapproval, meeting with judgment, meeting with rejection, whatever it was for you. So let's bring awareness to that nervousness. And really all that there's no doing there, there's just a willingness to open to this fully, whatever is still here. So as you do that, what is here?
When I'm not thinking about it or putting a label on it, it's really only a sensation, is what occurs to me.
Okay. So go ahead.
It could just as well be a slight indigestion, yet the mind seems to want to put meaning into it because, well, I won't say because that's putting meaning into it. But when I don't put meaning into it, it's simply a sensation.
Okay. So, what seems to have happened is that your mind came in and it started wanting to analyze what's happening or understand.
Yes, well, that's of course an old habit.
Okay, that's fine. That's perfect. It's good. It's not it's just to note, even the mind coming in can be seen.
Yes.
And, you realize that the mind has its kind of interpretations, but right now we're just, if you can, just let go of the thoughts and the mind and the understanding that the mind wants to contribute. And let's go back to that nervousness. That's what was calling you. And simply open to that. Without knowing what's going to result from this. And it may feel like you can't do it, or there may be resistance that comes up. That's all okay. You can see all of that arising. And you can go back to that nervousness. Beautiful. And it may get a little bit intense, but that's okay too. So what's here, Lee?
Well, it's interesting that you said it may get intense, because at that moment seemed to be expanding, permeating more of I'll say my body. It was more apparent.
Yes. And can you give it the full space it needs? Is that possible?
It's definitely possible.
Okay. Because this nervousness, it's very juicy, isn't it?
That's one description.
It's like you really want to get to the bottom of this, because it's so obviously quite some real power in it for you. So just noticing what's here, what's happening. And trusting that however this unfolds is just perfect. You can't get it wrong, Lee. Can't get it wrong. So what's happening for you?
I would say that I went from focusing, if you will, on the nervousness to being, when you said noticing, I was noticing all that was I was aware of at that moment, the other sensations in my body, what I could hear, any thought that might be coming up. Just, I'm seemingly aware of more than one thing.
And
if
what
there is a thing.
Okay, so what happened to the nervousness?
It seemed to recede more into the background.
Would you say it's still here? Or is it did it just disappear?
It's not present right now.
So what is present right now?
I am present right now.
Beautiful.
And again, it seems to be vacillating. Once I said that, then the sensation seemed to return. It's as if I'm on teetering on the edge. Again, that's just words from the mind.
Well, Lee, it's interesting because there's always two possibilities. One is that you're really getting to the core of something, and then often it simply dissolves. It's like, you needed to see it, to experience it for what it was, and then it's gone. For now, Or it's like there's a survival habit that means whatever it is you're experiencing used to overwhelm you, or it's uncomfortable. So we kind of disconnect from it, we take out. And so as you're trying to bring your full awareness to it, this old mechanism of survival can come back in, which is it's not safe to go there, so I'm off. And you can tell from your experience which one it is, because if it comes back, it means that you haven't gotten quite to it yet. If it doesn't come back, or there's really a sense of aliveness and expansion, even though this thing's still lingering, but somehow something got released, then you really got to the core of it. Then it's being liberated, then it's being healed. Does that make sense?
Yes. I know that if I can see it, if I can see the nervousness or feel the nervousness or constriction, then what is seeing it cannot be what is seeing. In other words, what I'm seeing is not what is seeing.
Yes. So Lee, you gotta be a bit careful here, because non-dual teachings can be used to kind of separate yourself out from whatever experience you're having.
Yes.
It's like, I'm not this. And yes, that's true. But you're also this. You, Lee, the human being, came into this life to experience just this. And, I'm kind of putting it a bit, well, let's just put it this way. You're not doing your full job if you're not bringing your full attention to this. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, thank you. I do.
I mean, it's putting it a bit kind of moralistically, but this is how it came to say. So I'm just gonna.
Again, it's a habit that my mind seems to want to come in and explain it. Mm-hmm. That happens quite often in meditation, where there's commentary, and then off in the mind.
Yes, and that commentary can be seen for what it is. And then, you don't give it your power. The power of your awareness is all it takes. And if you keep seeing the thought. But experience is a bit different, because, experience is actually calling you in a different way. I mean, yes, in a sense it's true. It's just experience. And we are not the experience. So there's a time when the disidentification from experience is actually helpful. But then there's a time when the experience calls your attention, calls you for a fuller awareness. And then it's good to be so clear that you're willing to bring yourself fully, your awareness, your power of awareness, fully to whatever shows up. Because that's your liberation, that's your healing. That's the ongoing healing, the ongoing liberation that happens, the ongoing loosening of the person.
It seems, and again, I don't want to get too much into explanation, but it seems, how can I be afraid of simply being aware? Being aware is so benign that there's nothing that could be wrong in being aware.
You know, Lee, you're not afraid of awareness, you're afraid of the experience. Because that's what scared you to begin with. And that's what made you disconnect from it. So, you know, it's like you can see that fear arising. And you can let that go. And simply, it's like a tenaciousness, you know. It's like a dog having a bone, you know. It's not going to let go of it until it's got to it, you know. So it's like you're not going to let go of an experience until you got to the bottom of it. And the core of it. And the core of it is never, you know, it's not in the analysis, it's in the actual experience of it. And that's what we keep avoiding. That's what we keep being afraid of, because it might be uncomfortable. You know, like just as you, when you focused on the nervousness, it got bigger at some point. And that was scary, right?
Yes.
So what do you say? Shall we go back into it, or is it gone now?
We can go back into it, sure. I would say it's still there to some extent.
Okay, good. So it's still calling you. So what if you're simply willing to feel it fully? And even if it feels like too much, just know that you're willing to get to the bottom of this. So what's there for you, Lee?
Well, I don't know how to say this without putting it in words. I felt there, I could feel a sense of fear, and it seemed like a fear of being alone, of not being loved. And then as I went into it, I realized I'm not alone. I am here. It felt better.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
And was that just a mental realization or a deeper realization?
Well, it was both. It was a realization at the feeling, knowing level, and then a mental description of what I was feeling.
You know, Lee, we can't do without words, because that's how we communicate. And that's okay. But you know, what's important is that the realization itself went deeper than just words and the mind. And where's the fear now?
It's not present right now.
Yes. It's like the fear was the gate to that fuller realization that you are not alone. You are here. This is so beautiful, Lee. Thank you for keeping going on that bone. It's so worth it, isn't it?
Thank you for throwing the bone, Grace.
Lee, you know, this is why I do these retreats. Because it's so beautiful to see this awareness just revealing itself, you know, through the constrictions, through the limitations, through the fears. And then at some point it just opens up. And that's so beautiful.
Not to make excuses, but I would just say old habits die hard. There's many years of conditioning. I would love for it to just crack open like a chick coming out of its shell. But as you mentioned earlier, it does seem to be more of a progressive, if you will, of breaking down the barriers. But
you know,
having said that, it seems like I'm making an excuse for not being awareness.
Being?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I didn't catch you because I was because I was coughing.
Need some water.
Body's still sick.
That cough wants to come out.
Yeah. Well, it's just a reminder that you know, as beings in form, we are vulnerable. Well, excuse me.
Do you need to take a break for a few minutes?
It's a good question. Let's see. You know, I think the cough is happening for good reason. It's this reminder, you know, it's this reminder that our human form is fragile. It gets hurt. gets sick, gets wounded, physically, emotionally. Spiritually, even. And I will just share a personal thing about coughing because it's quite interesting. I have a history of bronchitis, and I used to be so embarrassed about starting to cough in the presence of others, you know. And of course, the more embarrassed I got, the worse it got. And it's so interesting that this cough came back right at the beginning of the retreat. And I don't have much of a problem with that anymore. So I just figured it was meant to, you know, it was meant to be part of the experience. And I noticed that there were two things that were no longer present for me about coughing. One is that it's like the cough was just a physical experience. It wasn't about me. And it used to be about me. It was like something was wrong with me because I had all these coughs. I had all this bronchitis. And the other thing is, it was no longer about having to keep up a self-image of I'm healthy, I'm okay. You know, it's like I can be on retreat. It's like, it's just not a big deal. It just is what it is. So there's an identification with the body and an identification with the person that's no longer kind of stacked on top of the actual physical condition, which is I have a cough. So the physical condition simply is what it is, you know. I mean, yeah, it's not pleasant, but it doesn't prevent me from being on retreat with you all.
May I share
Yeah.
something that reminds me of? A few days ago, I had a sore throat, and in focusing on the perception of the soreness of the throat, in that moment, there was just the perceiving, there was just the soreness perception, and then the I seemed to rise and said, I have a sore throat. But in that moment of perceiving, there was no I, there was just the perceiving of the soreness, and it was sort of a mini revelation that I what I usually identify myself as being, the mind, the body, came in after the fact, but it wasn't. It was
yeah. Go ahead.
No pun intended, but it was a wake-up call.
Yes, absolutely.
That I could use the go back to.
Hello, Lee. Are you still here? Hello, Lee. We seem to have lost Lee. Hello, Lee. Can you hear me? Well, it's very interesting. We'll wait for Lee to come back on, and we'll continue on the story of the cough. I'll just use the time to go back to the YouTube thread. So, Nuria Vidal signed in. Europe is here this morning too, she says. In my place, it's afternoon. Grateful and happy to be joining with all of you. And Richa Sa says, love and prayers. Thank you for showing up. And I'm not sure what happened to Lee, but he seems to have gone. So I just want to say maybe a little something about meeting in stillness, because that's what this session is called. What does it mean to meet in stillness? It really means not getting busy in the mind with whatever is happening. And being willing, just as Lee and I did, being willing to meet whatever arises in stillness. So Lee met his nervousness, and I met my cough, and Lee disappeared, and now he's back again.
Of course, I didn't really disappear.
He disappeared in form. So there's this beauty of being that is always here. You can call it stillness, you can call it presence. And if whatever the experience is met in the stillness, there's just no further story to it. It then just is what it is. Just like when Lee got to the pure experience of nervousness, it simply was that, and it revealed something else, which was the deeper truth, which is that he's not alone. He's not separate. He's simply here. And the fear of being rejected, of not being loved, simply was no longer true for him in this moment. And Lee, it can come back. There are core experiences or core patterns that we have that we may need to bring awareness to for a while, over and over, until they really lose their grip on us. And that's the kind of service to awareness that we start being part of, Service to truth, service to love. It's like whatever we feel, whatever separateness we feel, whatever pain we feel, whatever wounding we feel, whatever experience is showing up, keeps showing up. For sure, it's a call to us to be willing to be there fully, to be willing to bring the fullness of our awareness to it. And to trust that as we do so, what is true will be revealed. The deeper truth will be revealed. Whatever that is. And in being in this ongoing willingness to be truthful, to be still, and to receive whatever arises. Whether it's a cough or an unpleasant physiological or emotional experience. It doesn't matter, you know. There's no deeper truth in coughing, or maybe there is. Who knows, you know. Some things are just happening in the body and they are what they are. But the deeper calling is always to bring all of ourselves, full awareness to whatever arises. And that becomes the bowing to truth, the bowing to, and the trusting of life to bring up exactly what needs to be experienced or seen or felt. And that's how truth reveals itself more and more fully. And love reveals itself more and more fully. Because when we bring that openness, that willingness to simply experience to whatever rises, ultimately it's not just a movement into true love, it's the same thing, really. But love reveals itself like that, as much as truth does. And it's really not separate. So this is my deepest wish for you on this retreat day, that you may come to this truth and love in your own way. What do you say, Lee?
I say thank you, Grace, for being present.
Thank you so much, Lee, thank you so much for being willing to expose yourself like this. And you know, you didn't just do that for yourself. You know, there are others who are piggybacking on your willingness and your just your willingness to be here fully.
I'm grateful to be here, Grace.
Yes. And I'm very touched and very grateful to you, Lee. I'm grateful to all of you for participating and being here. And I'm just going to go back to the YouTube thread. Nobody else there. So I think we'll leave it there for now. And I'll see you back at, let me check, back in half an hour for the session with Lisa. I just want to say Lisa brings a very, Lisa has the same teacher as myself, Gangaji, and she brings a very beautiful, fierce energy to her satsang. So we'll see what that can give you and can reveal to you. So I'll see you again there.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lee. Bye.